As Kai Xiao's and the Netherworld prince's gazes turned sharp at the same moment, the air in the world seemed to come to an abrupt halt, a chilling, killing intent spreading from the heavens and earth, making one's heart tremble. The eyes of all the powerful experts instantly contracted, and even Su Bue, Fang Yi, and the others wore solemn expressions. Powerful spiritual energy fluctuations surged around their bodies, preparing to avoid being caught in the ensuing battle. Kai Xiao stood gracefully in the sky, her long black hair dancing with the wind. Her captivating eyes, however, turned ice-cold, as though capable of freezing the very heavens and earth. An indescribable sense of danger radiated from her body. She could also sense the change in the Netherworld prince's aura on Mu Chen's battlefield. Just as she expected, the latter intended to unleash his strongest moves to kill Mu Chen at this moment. However, she didn't let herself be distracted. She knew that both sides were now gambling. Fang Yi was betting that the Netherworld prince could quickly slay Mu Chen, after which they would join forces to deal with her, while she, on the other hand, was betting that Mu Chen could hold the Netherworld prince off long enough to give him the time needed to kill Fang Yi. What she needed to do now wasn't worry about Mu Chen, but to eliminate Fang Yi as quickly as possible. That would be the greatest help to Mu Chen. It seems we're on the same page, Fang Yi said, his gaze fixed on the floating Kai Xiao, his body tensing. The dangerous aura emanating from her made his body feel a stinging sensation, and his expression grew extremely serious. But the outcome will not be as you imagine, Kai Xiao replied indifferently, her voice carrying an icy coldness that seemed to lower the temperature of the air itself. Is that so? Fang Yi smiled. He had to admit, his courage was impressive. Even in the face of the dangerously intense Kai Xiao, he still didn't show much panic. His composure was unshaken, and he didn't lose the reputation of being #1 in the Dragon Phoenix record. From this alone, it was clear that he was not a man of empty renown, and indeed, the top of the younger generation in the northern domain had earned his place. But I fear someone else might not last. Is that so? Kai Xiao retorted with the same cold smile. Then, without any hesitation, her slender jade-like hands swiftly formed a seal. Immediately, countless dazzling afterimages of her hand appeared in the air. At the same time, the space around her began to violently fluctuate, resembling boiling water, constantly spreading and bubbling. Radiant seven-colored lights shot out from her body, transforming the entire world into a breathtakingly beautiful scene. Yet beneath this splendor lay an aura of deadly danger. The seven-colored light began to gather with astonishing speed in Kai Xiao's palm. The spiritual energy in the world seemed to be violently converging toward her, and then a seven-colored vortex swiftly materialized in her palm. The vortex expanded rapidly, growing to 100 zhang in size in the blink of an eye. The vortex resembled a black hole, except that it wasn't pitch black. Instead, it was filled with seven-colored hues, making it appear even more mysterious. The seven-colored vortex formed in front of Kai Xiao, and the surrounding space shattered into fragments, with dark cracks spreading out at a visible speed. Everyone was struck with awe at the destructive power of this seven-colored vortex. Some powerful experts couldn't help but retreat in fear, sensing the immense danger in the air. It was clear to everyone that this attack from Kai Xiao was terrifying beyond measure. The seven-colored light shimmered in Kai Xiao's captivating eyes, as beautiful as a dream. However, she merely stared coldly at Fang Yi. In the next instant, her slender jade finger gently tapped the air, producing a clear, melodious sound that resonated through the heavens. Seven-colored sky devouring technique. Devour the firmament. As the clear voice left Kai Xiao's rosy lips, Fang Yi's body instantly tensed, and the space around him twisted rapidly. His figure vanished without a trace, and even his aura and spiritual energy fluctuations disappeared completely, as though he had turned into nothingness. Buzz, however, Kai Xiao's expression didn't change in the slightest. The seven-colored vortex trembled and then vanished into thin air. Just as the seven-colored vortex disappeared, a section of the sky several thousand zhang away suddenly shattered, and in the distorted space, a blurry shadow dashed across. But as soon as the shadow appeared, the space above its head cracked open, and a massive seven-colored vortex emerged, floating directly above. A beam of light descended, enveloping the area. Fang Yi's ghostly speed immediately froze, and he even realized that the space around him was reinforced, preventing him from tearing through it to escape. Moreover, within the vast seven-colored vortex above, a terrifying force of devouring continued to emanate. Under this force, not only did his body slowly draw closer to the vortex, but even his spiritual energy seemed to be getting sucked out. What a terrifying devouring force. Fang Yi's expression finally changed. The seven-colored vortex was like a maggot on the bone, completely unavoidable. Once enveloped by it, it seemed like it wouldn't stop until it swallowed him whole. Fang Yi looked up at the rotating seven-colored vortex. He could feel the deadly danger within it. If he were truly sucked into the vortex, even with his confidence, he wouldn't dare say he could escape alive. He had never underestimated Kai Xiao, but the methods she was showing now still caused a slight unease in his heart. Who exactly was this mysterious girl? However, this thought passed fleetingly in Fang Yi's mind. At this moment, he no longer had the luxury to think of anything else. He had to stop Kai Xiao's offensive. At the very least, he had to buy time. Buy time for the Netherworld Prince to kill Mu Chen. Boom. Fang Yi's eyes flashed urgently. In the next moment, his hands rapidly formed seals, and brilliant spiritual light erupted from his body. Subtle and cryptic fluctuations began to emanate. Heavenly divine art, heavenly divine lotus. As Fang Yi's voice echoed through the sky, spiritual light gathered beneath his feet. Eventually, it transformed into a divine lotus throne of several dozen feet in size. The lotus throne was dark green, and its petals were covered in ancient glowing patterns, radiating with obscure ripples, revealing an extremely powerful spiritual energy fluctuation. Clearly, Fang Yi had pushed his defensive measures to the extreme. The lotus throne appeared beneath Fang Yi, and its petals slowly rose, forming a protective light shield around him. The defense was so powerful that even if the heavens collapsed, the lotus throne would remain unbroken. With the appearance of the lotus throne, Fang Yi's body, which had been flying rapidly towards the seven-colored vortex, slowed down. The lotus throne emitted a strange force, counteracting the devouring power of the vortex. The two forces collided, causing even space itself to warp. Kai Xiao watched this scene, and her delicate brows slightly lifted. Fang Yi's many tactics were indeed a bit unexpected. The top young expert of the northern domain wasn't a fool after all. However, even with this, it seemed that it wouldn't be enough to stop her. Kai Xiao gently raised her hand, and the rotation of the seven-colored vortex sped up. The devouring force it released grew increasingly terrifying. Under this force, Fang Yi's body, still protected by the lotus throne, was slowly drawn towards the vortex. Although the speed was slow, it was evident that no matter what methods Fang Yi used, they couldn't resist it. At this rate, he would eventually be swallowed by the seven-colored vortex, and once trapped within it, no matter how many tricks he had up his sleeve, he probably wouldn't be able to escape with his life. The numerous powerful figures in the heavens, witnessing this scene, also looked shocked. It was hard to believe that even someone as strong as Fang Yi couldn't resist this mysterious young woman. If this continues, Fang Yi will probably lose, Ding Xian remarked, his gaze fixed on the daunting battlefield, his voice full of astonishment. Su Biyue and Hong Yu both nodded gravely. However, they quickly shifted their gaze towards another battlefield, where terrible spiritual energy fluctuations were beginning to ripple. However, Fang Yi should be able to hold out for a while. If the Netherworld Prince defeats Mu Chen within that time, he can join forces with Fang Yi to turn the tide of battle. This thought was clearly shared by many powerful beings in the heavens, and thus countless eyes turned towards the place where violent spiritual energy erupted. There, two figures were also furiously channeling their spiritual energy. While Kai Xiao and Fang Yi were locked in a stalemate, everyone knew that the other battlefield would be decisive. Under the watchful eyes of countless onlookers, amidst the wild spiritual energy, Mu Chen and the Netherworld Prince stood opposed, the latter's expression indifferent. Vast spiritual energy radiated from him as he gazed at Mu Chen, who stood with the great sun indestructible body above him. He sensed that things weren't going well on Fang Yi's side, so he understood that it was time to deal with Mu Chen. The Netherworld Prince slowly brought his hands together in a prayer gesture, his eyes gradually closing. His lips moved as if an ancient voice was resonating, silently emanating from him. The voice was as though it came from the Netherworld, carrying an endless chill, and the temperature in the world began to drop drastically. Snowflakes began to fall, but these snowflakes were black, so cold they could freeze the air itself. Countless black snowflakes fell and then gathered behind the Netherworld Prince. Soon, the snowflakes spontaneously ignited, turning into wisps of black flames that flowed around the Netherworld Prince's body like liquid. This bizarre sight made countless powerful experts take a sharp breath, for they could sense that wherever the liquid-like black flames passed, it felt as if spiritual energy had solidified. The Netherworld Prince raised his head, his deep, dark eyes coldly locking onto Chen. He then pointed a finger into the air, and in an instant, the black flames behind him surged like a fire dragon from the depths of the Netherworld, sweeping across the sky in an overwhelming torrent. At the same time, the Netherworld Prince's indifferent voice, laced with endless coldness, echoed across the world. Nether God Art, Nether God Annihilation Flame. When the voice, filled with immense coldness, left the Netherworld Prince's mouth, the black flames immediately swept through the void. As the flames passed, even spiritual energy froze and solidified into black, fragmented crystals, merging into the black flames, making them even more terrifyingly powerful. Everyone's scalp tingled as they watched the black flames streaking across the sky. It seemed that anything obstructing its path would eventually be melted and absorbed by the flames. That's the top-tier divine art of the Netherworld Palace, reaching the semi-perfect level. It's said that when perfected, anything within a 1,000-mile radius would be turned into its original spiritual energy, then absorbed by the black flames. I heard that the former master of the Netherworld Palace used this technique once, and the black flames completely annihilated an entire top-tier sect, turning everything into nothing. Although the Netherworld Prince's technique is still not perfected, this level of power is definitely beyond the reach of someone at this level of cultivation. Among the strong, there were some sharp-eyed experts who immediately whispered in shock. It seemed they were surprised to see the Netherworld Prince using such a deadly trump card. After their astonishment, a sense of sympathy for Chen began to form. Under such an attack from the Netherworld Prince, even experts like Liu Yin, Su Biyue, and Fang Yi would have no chance of survival. Chen and the others are probably going to lose, someone sighed regretfully. Given the current situation, as the black flames passed, Chen would likely be melted instantly. As for Fang Yi, he might be able to hold on for a bit, but this world might seem brief, yet it was enough for the current scenario. Once the Netherworld Prince dealt with Chen, joining forces with Fang Yi would likely seal the outcome of this confrontation. On another battlefield, Kai Xiao and Fang Yi's eyes were also drawn to the fight elsewhere. They both glanced over and immediately changed their expressions. However, Fang Yi showed a faint smile while Kai Xiao's delicate face darkened, for both could clearly sense the overwhelming power of the black flames unleashed by the Netherworld Prince. Such an attack would be troublesome even for the two of them. Not to mention, Chen was only a third-grade supreme. Though he had previously defeated Liu Yin, which made everyone rethink his strength, the Netherworld Prince was much stronger than Liu Yin. Fang Yi stood atop the Green Lotus Divine Throne. He looked toward Kai Xiao's direction, smiling faintly. It seems the outcome isn't going the way you expected. As he spoke, he subtly urged the Lotus Divine Throne to resist the terrifying pull from the seven-colored vortex, clearly attempting to distract Kai Xiao and buy some more time. But his plan clearly didn't work. Kai Xiao's enchanting eyes only gave him a cold glance, and the terrifying devouring power from the seven-colored vortex only intensified, making Fang Yi furrow his brows. After forcing Fang Yi to silence, Kai Xiao finally cast a distant glance towards Chen's direction. She gently bit her red lips, her heart heavy with helplessness. At this moment, even she couldn't offer any help to Chen. The outcome of everything now depended entirely on Chen's own strength. Chen, you must hold on, Kai Xiao whispered to herself, her jade-like hand clenching tightly. Once Chen was defeated, all her advantages would inevitably disappear. At this moment, all she could do was place her trust in him. Although she didn't know if Chen, facing the powerful Netherworld prince, would be able to endure, she still believed that this young man might be able to create some miracles. Meanwhile, as all eyes in the world were fixed upon him, and countless sighs filled the air, Chen, standing atop his great sun's indestructible body, did not show the despair that others had expected. Instead, his black eyes grew brighter and sharper with each passing moment. The black flames surged towards him like a dark flood, seemingly unstoppable by any defense. Chen could also sense the terrifying spiritual energy fluctuations within the black flame. The Netherworld Prince was indeed a formidable opponent, his power far surpassing that of Liu Yin. However, crushing Chen wasn't as simple as it seemed. Chen pressed his lips together, his face turning grave. He then joined his hands together, forming strange, ancient seals. As his hands moved, a mysterious and faint Sanskrit chant seemed to echo through the heavens and earth. All the shocked eyes in the sky were drawn to him, seeing Chen's actions as a desperate counterattack. This was indeed courageous, but in the end, relying solely on bravery could not alter the inevitable outcome. If Chen couldn't display a miraculous breakthrough, the desperate result would remain unchanged. The Sanskrit chant echoed through the air as Chen closed his eyes. Dark purple spiritual light began to radiate from his body, and as it gathered, mysterious purple petals started to form around him. The petals slowly gathered together, forming a massive, mysterious flower beneath him. The flower, about 100 meters in size, was dark purple, with enchanting and mysterious petals. Ancient patterns were faintly visible on the petals, and the sound of the Sanskrit chant brought a sense of peace and calm. Chen's expression was solemn. He could feel the rapidly depleting spiritual energy within the Supreme Sea, and even the blood in his veins was trembling. All his spiritual energy surged into the mysterious flower below him. Slowly, Chen extended his hand and formed a seal with his fingers. At that moment, the petals of the mysterious flower began to bloom, and the flower's core aimed directly at the incoming tide of black flame. Chen's face grew paler as the spiritual energy drained rapidly, but he showed no signs of stopping. Instead, his black eyes grew even brighter. "You want to crush me? It's not that easy." This ultimate move was the ancient divine art Chen had learned from the Mandala. Over the past period, he had never stopped practicing it. Though he had failed many times, he had gradually begun to understand it. Now, in this critical moment, he had finally perfected it. Buzz. As Chen's cold voice resonated in his heart, the ancient patterns on the petals of the divine flower grew brighter. The light from the patterns seemed to revive, swirling and gathering toward the flower's core. From that point, deep purple light began to concentrate. At some unknown moment, the world grew dark, with only the flower's core shining with the brightest light, as if it were absorbing all the light in the heavens and earth. Countless powerful figures trembled at the sight, feeling an unusual fluctuation. Chen's actions caused a strange unease in their hearts. The world dimmed, and even the space seemed to tremble. Chen's face grew even more pale, but his gaze became sharper. The next moment, he lightly pointed with his long fingers, sending a single command into the air. "Go." When Chen's muttering voice echoed in his heart, the dim world around him suddenly plunged into complete darkness. The only light was the dazzling ancient divine flower, which became the sole source of illumination in the vast, shadowy expanse. Then, everyone witnessed the ancient flower tremble violently, and a dark purple glow erupted from it, as if a volcano had exploded. The purple beam did not carry the earth-shattering power of annihilation, but as it swept through the void, everyone seemed to hear the sound of space fracturing. Where the beam passed, it seemed that all vitality was erased. The overwhelming dominance of the energy sent a deep chill into the hearts of all who witnessed it. On the face of the Netherworld prince, who was typically indifferent, a trace of surprise flashed. But it was quickly replaced by a fierce determination. In this moment, he could not afford any disruptions. He had to eliminate Chen. The Netherworld prince formed seals with his hands, and immediately, the black flames surged forth with even greater fury. In the blink of an eye, it shattered space and roared like a black dragon from the depths of the Netherworld, carrying endless cold and darkness, crashing directly into the purple celestial light that swept across. Boom. At the moment of impact, brilliant light shot into the sky, and the previously darkened world became blindingly bright, forcing countless people to squint their eyes in response. Then, a violent shockwave, as ferocious as a volcanic eruption, exploded outward, rippling across a vast area of tens of thousands of meters. The golden, dragon phoenix-shaped platforms floating in the sky were almost entirely shattered into dust. Su Biyue, Hong Yu, Ding Xian, and the others were sent flying backward in disarray. Powerful spiritual energy formed a protective shield in front of them, resisting the shockwave. The terrifying shockwave rampaged through the surroundings, but the blinding light gradually faded. All eyes turned anxiously to the sky, eager to see the outcome of this terrifying collision. Who would remain standing in the end? Would the domineering Netherworld prince crush everything in his path, or could the cornered Mu Chun make a miraculous comeback? As the light in the sky finally dissipated, the scene above became clear. When it appeared, a wave of gasps echoed throughout the world, one after another. In the sky, the dazzling ancient divine flower had unknowingly closed, gradually transforming into a scattering of light points. As the light points vanished, a slender figure reappeared before everyone's eyes. Though his face was slightly pale, there was no sign of weakness in him. It was Mu Chun. The world erupted into an incredible uproar, like the explosion of a volcano, as countless people were left stunned and speechless. Mu Chun had actually managed to block the Netherworld prince's fatal blow. This guy, he had really done it. Countless light points slowly descended from the sky, and the entire world was silent. Everyone stared at the sky with wide eyes, dumbfounded. In their gazes, there was a mix of shock and disbelief. Clearly, this result was beyond many people's expectations. After all, it was the Netherworld prince, a super powerhouse ranked second in the Dragon Phoenix record. Among the younger generation of the Northern Domain, except for Fang Yi, almost every genius had to look up to him. Even formidable figures like Lu Yin and Su Biyue, who were also talented, were wary when facing the Netherworld prince. In their previous confrontation, not to mention Mu Chun, who was merely a third-grade supreme, even if it were Lu Yin or Su Biyue, they too would have had no chance of surviving that deadly attack. Yet, reality was always full of miracles. All eyes were fixed on the slender figure in the sky. After a long moment of silence, the stunned murmur finally broke, erupting into loud exclamations. Su Biyue, Hong Yu, and the others exchanged glances, and then a slightly stunned smile appeared on their beautiful faces. This Mu Chun, he's truly amazing, Ding Xian said solemnly. Even someone as battle-hungry as him could not deny how spectacular Mu Chen's performance was. Lu Yin was defeated by his hand, and it's not unjust, Su Biyue and Hong Yu both lightly nodded. If they had previously thought that Lu Yin would lose to Mu Chun, perhaps due to underestimating him, now they understood. Mu Chun indeed possessed terrifying strength, enough to defeat Lu Yin. It seems that after this Dragon Phoenix heaven, Mu Chen's name will echo throughout the entire Northern Domain. As the entire world was enveloped by the stunned murmurs of amazement, Mu Chun in the sky remained completely unmoved. His face was pale, clearly from the immense toll exerted by using the Mandala annihilation light. Although the Mandala annihilation light had blocked the Netherworld prince's deadly strike, Mu Chen's body remained tense, his eyes sharply focused on the distance, where the Netherworld prince hovered in midair. However, the usual indifferent expression on the latter's face had turned a deep shade of iron, his gaze dark and filled with ominous intent. Clearly, this setback had stirred a surge of fury in the deeply calculating warrior's heart. He could hardly believe what was happening. His ultimate, sure-kill technique, which he had complete confidence in, had been blocked head-on by a mere third-grade supreme. This was something even Lu Yin, Su Biyue, and the others could never have done. I truly misjudged this time. The Netherworld prince's eyes were sharp, as if they could pierce through Mu Chun. His voice was deep, filled with fury. But the earlier counterattack must have exhausted your spiritual energy, right? What will you do next? The Netherworld prince's tone was chilling, and the killing intent surging from his body seemed to lower the temperature of the entire area. Netherworld. As the Netherworld prince's anger surged, a sudden shout rang out from the battlefield on the other side of the sky. The shout caused the Netherworld prince's expression to change slightly. He quickly looked up and saw the seven-colored vortex in the battle between Kai Xiao and Fang Yi, with the devouring force rapidly increasing. Meanwhile, cracks had begun to appear on the Lotus Divine throne beneath Fang Yi. On the Lotus Divine throne, Fang Yi's face was extremely solemn. He was continuously channeling massive amounts of spiritual energy into the throne beneath his feet in an attempt to reinforce its defenses. At this moment, he couldn't help but inwardly lament. Earlier, he had been focused on the battle between the Netherworld Prince and Mu Chen, but who would have expected that the Netherworld Prince's sure-kill move had been blocked by Mu Chen? This had deeply shocked him, causing a slight flaw in his control over his spiritual energy. And Kai Xiao had keen eyes. Although Fang Yi's flaw was tiny, she immediately seized upon it. As the devouring force surged, it shattered the Lotus Divine throne, causing its power to suddenly dissipate. Fang Yi, although he attempted to remedy the situation in time, had already lost the initiative. In this kind of duel, losing the initiative was enough to seal his fate. Thus, under the rapid rotation of the seven-colored vortex, Fang Yi's overwhelming spiritual energy was being devoured, and the cracks on the Lotus Divine throne spread further, making it clear that it wouldn't hold up for much longer. At this moment, even Fang Yi, normally composed, couldn't help but shout at the Netherworld Prince. If the Netherworld Prince couldn't deal with Mu Chen, he wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. Hearing Fang Yi's shout, the Netherworld Prince's expression shifted, his eyes flickering with uncertainty. Finally, he gritted his teeth, stomped his foot, and the space around him twisted as his figure disappeared. However, as the Netherworld Prince vanished, a massive pair of phoenix wings stretched out from Mu Chen's back. With a powerful flap, he instantly reappeared several thousand feet away. In the moment Mu Chen disappeared, the Netherworld Prince appeared at the spot where he had just been, looking at the already cautious and retreating Mu Chen, his face a storm of rage. Clearly, Mu Chen had long anticipated this move. "It seems like you're the one who's lost," Mu Chen said from a distance, a faint smile tugging at his pale face. "What's wrong? Now all you can do is scurry away like a rat." The Netherworld Prince sneered coldly. As his laughter echoed, his figure vanished once more. Swish. Mu Chen naturally knew that the Netherworld Prince wanted to force him into another direct confrontation, but such a foolish act was something Mu Chen would never do. After continuous battles, his spiritual energy had already been depleted, and a head-on clash would clearly be the most reckless choice. At this moment, all he needed to do was stall the Netherworld Prince for a while. The balance of victory would naturally tip in their favor, as Mu Chen could already feel that Fang Yi, usually composed and calm, was starting to show signs of impatience. It was precisely because the Netherworld Prince had lost his initial composure that Mu Chen was able to narrowly avoid his relentless pursuit. In the sky, two streaks of light flickered, one chasing, one fleeing. Although the encounters were close calls each time, Mu Chen never gave the Netherworld Prince the chance to strike directly. This chase lasted for several rounds. Everyone watching could feel the overwhelming killing intent around the Netherworld Prince, his dark and ominous gaze seemingly wanting to tear Mu Chen apart. With another flicker, the Netherworld Prince suddenly halted midair. His eyes locked onto Mu Chen with a venomous glare, causing the latter to tense up and become more cautious. However, the Netherworld Prince did not lash out in anger again. Instead, he took a deep breath, and the fury in his eyes gradually faded. After all, he was no ordinary person and knew that continuing in this state would never allow him to catch Mu Chen. As the rage in the Netherworld Prince's eyes subsided into indifference, Mu Chen's heart skipped a beat. This guy was indeed tricky. He had adjusted his mindset so quickly. The calm Netherworld Prince was far more dangerous. The Netherworld Prince shot Mu Chen a cold glance before his hands suddenly formed a seal. Dark light surged from his body, and two vague black shadows materialized beside him. At the same time, the Netherworld Prince's body began to blur, until it completely merged with the two black shadows. Whoosh! 3 black shadows suddenly disappeared into thin air. Chen's expression changed drastically. He flapped his phoenix wings and swiftly retreated. He could feel an overwhelming, life-threatening danger coming toward him. Buzz. Just as Chen retreated, the space around him suddenly distorted. 3 black shadows appeared in 3 directions, sealing off all his escape routes completely. Try running again. The 3 black shadows spoke in unison, their voices icy. Then, a vast palm print, carrying immense killing intent, descended toward Chen. If it struck, even Chen's dragon and phoenix body would suffer a fatal blow. However, Chen, unable to avoid the Netherworld Prince's sudden assault, could only watch as his eyes flickered with desperation. Boom. Just as the Netherworld Prince launched his attack, a shocking sound reverberated through the heavens and earth. On another battlefield, the lotus throne beneath Fang Yi's feet finally couldn't withstand the immense devouring force and shattered with a loud bang. Once the lotus throne shattered, Fang Yi's body was exposed to the devouring force, immediately being dragged toward the 7-colored vortex. Kai Zhao's cold eyes locked onto the approaching Fang Yi. Once he was sucked into the vortex, he would be doomed, unable to escape even with his divine soul. Fang Yi struggled, but to no avail. Even when he unleashed his supreme Dharmakaya, it seemed useless. The 7-colored vortex was simply too overwhelming. Fang Yi's expression darkened, no longer the calm demeanor from before. As the vortex drew nearer, the dangerous fluctuations emanating from it caused his scalp to tingle. Damn it! Unable to hold back, Fang Yi finally roared in anger. He gritted his teeth, clenched his hand, and a crimson ancient jade appeared in his palm. Without hesitation, he crushed it. Boom. As the ancient jade shattered, the space around Fang Yi violently twisted, and a spatial black hole formed, swallowing him whole and vanishing in an instant. The humiliation of today, Fang Yi will remember it in his heart. One day, it will be repaid. As Fang Yi's body disappeared, his voice, filled with fury, echoed through the heavens and earth. Countless powerful figures stood frozen, their eyes wide in disbelief, then gasped in shock. Fang Yi had escaped. The ancient jade he shattered was clearly a protective treasure provided by the Divine Hall. Once crushed, it allowed him to break through space and escape. This meant that Fang Yi had likely already fled from Dragon Phoenix Heaven. Kai Zhao's beautiful eyes coldly gazed at Fang Yi, who had ultimately chosen to flee. In the next instant, her body suddenly vanished into thin air. In another part of the sky, 3 dark shadows launched massive palm strikes, intending to strike down Chen. However, the wild, flickering look in Chen's eyes suddenly became calm. He then gave a mocking smile toward the Netherworld Prince. Sorry, we won. Upon hearing Chen's words, the Netherworld Prince was immediately taken aback. A cold glint flashed in his eyes. No matter what, he couldn't let this kid escape. Boom. Killing intent surged around the Netherworld Prince, as 3 overwhelming palm strikes shot toward Chen's crown like lightning, intending to crush him. However, just as the palm strikes were about to land, a cold, small hand pressed against the Netherworld Prince's back like a ghost. Then, a chilling voice reached his ears, freezing his body in place. Move again, and you die. Above the sky, overwhelming spiritual energy swirled like a storm, only to suddenly freeze in place under the cold, bone-chilling voice of the girl. Everyone's pupils constricted as they looked up at the sky. There, Chen stood with 1 foot in the air. Surrounding him were 3 blurry black shadows, their killing intent filling the air. The ferocious palm strikes were about to land on Chen, and those strikes alone could severely injure him. However, after the 3 black shadows, the girl with flowing black hair appeared in a strange manner. Her jade-like hand pressed first against one of the black shadows' backs. The terrifying spiritual power in her palm caused the black shadow's body to stiffen instantly. The palm strike that was about to fall was frozen mid-air, for he knew that if his palm landed, the attack coming from behind would cost him a terribly heavy price. The air above seemed to freeze at that moment, and no one dared to break the silence. The Netherworld Prince's eyes flickered wildly, alternating between cruel and wary. His gaze shifted so rapidly that his previously indifferent face now appeared somewhat distorted. His eyes clearly reflected an unwillingness. If he were given just a few more breaths, he He could have dealt with Mu Chen, but he never expected. Kai Xiao was faster. If she could appear behind him, it was clear that Fang Yi had failed. And Fang Yi's failure meant that his plan to deal with Mu Chen had also failed. Mu Chen smiled faintly as he watched the Netherworld Prince's eyes flicker madly. Even though the fierce palm strike was right in front of him, there was no trace of fear in his eyes. Instead, he slowly withdrew his phoenix wings, turning them into light and making them vanish. You lost. Mu Chen looked at the Netherworld Prince and repeated, "Are you looking for death?" The Netherworld Prince's voice was cold. At this moment, Mu Chen's life was almost entirely in his hands, yet the latter's demeanor gave no sign of fear. "You don't have the guts to exchange your life for mine," Mu Chen said, his black eyes fixed firmly on the Netherworld Prince. A mocking smile curled at the corner of his mouth. The Netherworld Prince's pupils slightly contracted. Although Mu Chen had fallen into his hands, in their confrontation, Mu Chen's momentum completely overwhelmed him. Under Mu Chen's fearless gaze, a faint, almost imperceptible trace of fear stirred deep in the Netherworld Prince's heart. Though he was reluctant to admit it, he understood clearly that, as Mu Chen had said, he lacked the courage to exchange lives with him. The Netherworld Prince's gaze flickered, and after taking a deep breath, he turned his head toward Kai Xiao. "Let's pull back together. I don't think we should really tear our faces apart and fight to the death. It wouldn't benefit either of us." Kai Xiao's beautiful eyes glanced at Mu Chen. He nodded lightly at her. Their goal was the Dragon Phoenix inheritance, and there was indeed no need to push the Netherworld Prince into a corner. After all, a desperate rabbit could bite. Furthermore, the Netherworld Prince was no rabbit but a vicious wolf that could strike at any moment. Both the Netherworld Prince and Kai Xiao were not ordinary people. Therefore, they didn't resort to useless, underhanded tactics. They simultaneously withdrew, and their violent spiritual energy abruptly dissipated. Whoosh! The Netherworld Prince's figure flashed, appearing thousands of feet away. He kept a wary gaze fixed on Kai Xiao and Mu Chen. Mu Chen let out a soft sigh of relief. His spiritual energy had been greatly depleted. If the battle continued, he would likely fall into a dangerous situation. Impressive. Mu Chen gave Kai Xiao a thumbs up. Although he had never fought Fang Yi before, the man was ranked first in the Dragon and Phoenix record, a formidable figure whose reputation was even slightly stronger than that of the Netherworld Prince. Mu Chen had already personally experienced the Netherworld Prince's abilities, so he couldn't help but marvel at Kai Xiao's ability to defeat the even stronger Fang Yi. The cold expression on Kai Xiao's delicate face thawed at this moment, replaced by a mesmerizing smile that seemed to captivate all who looked at her. Countless gazes from around the world involuntarily turned toward her, but none dared show any disrespect. Clearly, her display of power earlier had left them deeply intimidated. "You did well too. I wasn't wrong about you," Kai Xiao said with a faint smile. In her eyes, there was a trace of admiration for Mu Chen. If Mu Chen hadn't done everything in his power to stop the Netherworld Prince, she probably wouldn't have been able to defeat Fang Yi. "I almost slipped up," Mu Chen said helplessly. Mu Chen knew clearly that with his current strength, he could only resist the Netherworld Prince for a short time in direct combat. If a full-scale battle broke out, his chances of victory were slim. After all, he was still only a third-grade supreme, while the Netherworld Prince was already almost stepping into the fifth-grade supreme level. Such power would be enough to make him a king even in the great Luo Heaven domain. So, even though Mu Chen had many tricks up his sleeve, it would still be difficult to defeat the Netherworld Prince as effortlessly as he had Lu Yin. "A third-grade supreme has already surprised me with what you've done. If you and he were at the same level, he'd be far inferior to you," Kai Xiao smiled. Mu Chen couldn't help but admit that receiving such a sweet compliment from such a beautiful and alluring young woman made his vanity surge. It almost made him feel weightless. After praising Mu Chen, Kai Xiao's beautiful eyes shifted to the distant figure of the Netherworld Prince. She coldly said, "Aren't you leaving yet?" The Netherworld Prince's face darkened. He cast a gloomy look at the two of them, and then fixed his gaze on Mu Chen. His voice was cold as he said, "The events of today have been remembered by my Netherworld Palace. But next time we meet, I hope you won't rely on a woman to save you." Upon hearing this, Mu Chen smiled and said, "Next time we meet, you should be the one who needs to be careful." Although it was difficult for him to defeat the Netherworld Prince right now, Chen was confident he would catch up. So, if they met again, and the Netherworld Prince tried to push him into a disadvantageous situation like today, Chen would show him what it meant to truly look at someone in a new light. Arrogant, the Netherworld Prince sneered. As one of the top young elites in the Northern Domain, his pride was unmatched. To him, Chen's words of surpassing him were laughable. He believed that, if not for Kai Zhao's presence today, Chen would have had no chance of surviving. With those final words, the Netherworld Prince did not linger in the place that irritated him. He shot them a dark glance, and in an instant, his figure turned into a streak of light as he headed toward the horizon. He understood that, in order to safely obtain the Dragon Phoenix inheritance, Kai Zhao would never allow someone like him to stay. And since he could no longer covet the inheritance, staying there was pointless. The grudge between them could only be resolved at another time. You'll be in trouble later, Kai Zhao said, looking at the retreating figure of the Netherworld Prince. She smiled mischievously at Chen. Chen was taken aback. I'm not from the Northern Domain. The Dragon Phoenix Empress will leave soon, but you're from the Great Luo Heaven Domain. You'll still encounter Fang Yi and the Netherworld Prince here in the Northern Domain. By then, Kai Zhao teased. Chen nodded. He had already offended the two most powerful figures in the Dragon and Phoenix record, which wasn't great news for him. However, over the years, he had offended countless opponents. In the end, all these so-called opponents had only become stepping stones for him to reach higher levels. So, far from fearing these potential threats, Chen actually looked forward to them. It was precisely because of such pressure that he could become stronger. If you're worried, the Dragon Phoenix Empress can come with me. The places I will take you are more suited for you than the Great Luo Heaven Domain. There, you might also find better cultivation conditions. Kai Zhao's strength was enough to prove the extraordinary background behind her. According to Chen's estimation, her background was likely unparalleled in the Northern Domain. Perhaps, as she had said, if one went to where she came from, they would be able to obtain better cultivation conditions, something many powerful cultivators could only dream of. However, Chen smiled and shook his head. He wasn't accustomed to being sheltered. Instead, he preferred to carve his own path with his own strength. True peerless powerhouses were not born from relying on the protection of any powerful forces or the accumulation of resources. Don't worry about me. Next time, I'll deal with them for you, Chen said with a smile. When Kai Zhao heard Chen reject her offer, she raised an eyebrow. But soon, she was taken aback by the strong sense of confidence in his voice. She knew very well how formidable Fang Yi was. Even with her intervention, she had to use a lot of effort, and Chen claiming he could handle both Fang Yi and the Netherworld Prince sounded almost impossible to ordinary people. However, Kai Zhao did not mock him. Her enchanting eyes assessed Chen for a moment before she let out a light laugh and said, "All right then, I hope that when we meet next time, you'll bring me some good news." Chen nodded with a smile. Seeing this, Kai Zhao shifted her gaze, looking at the countless gazes of awe in the sky. She then turned her attention to Su Biyue, Hong Yu, and Ding Xian, who were standing in another direction. Her voice was cold as she asked, "Do you have any objections to us obtaining the Dragon Phoenix inheritance?" Upon hearing Kai Zhao's words, Su Biyue, Hong Yu, and Ding Xian exchanged glances and sighed lightly. Since even Fang Yi and the Netherworld Prince had been repelled, they dared not say anything further. Without a word, they wisely shook their heads. "Then thank you." A beautiful smile finally appeared on Kai Zhao's face, its beauty so dazzling that even Su Biyue and Hong Yu, who were both stunning, were momentarily overshadowed by it. Chen looked up at the top of the Dragon Phoenix altar. There, dazzling golden light radiated, as if filled with endless mysteries. A surge of excitement rose in his heart.